When a dying child is abandoned in a dusty frontier town, one woman's compassion sparks a chain of events no one could have foreseen. As fear turns to anger and the truth begins to surface, she'll discover that saving one life might mean facing an entire world of hate. Thank you so much for watching, and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you like the story, and where you're watching from, and why you're following this. The scorching summer sun beat down mercilessly on the small frontier town of Redemption Creek in the Texas Territory, 1875. Martha Collins, a young widow of 25, wiped the sweat from her brow as she arranged medical supplies in her modest clinic. Having arrived just 3 months prior from Boston after her husband's passing, she had quickly established herself as the town's only person with formal medical training. Her auburn hair was tied back in a practical bun, and her once fine dress had been modified for the practical demands of frontier life. "Miss Collins," the door burst open, revealing a breathless young boy. "There's trouble at the saloon. A fight broke out, and someone's hurt real bad." Martha grabbed her medical bag without hesitation. "Lead the way, Timothy." They hurried down the dusty main street, past curious onlookers and whispered conversations. The frontier town, a collection of wooden structures arranged haphazardly along the main thoroughfare, was still adapting to her presence. A woman doctor, and an Easterner at that. At the saloon, a crowd had gathered, their faces a mixture of anger and fear. Sheriff Dawson, a weathered man with a perpetually stern expression, held his hand up when he saw Martha approaching. "Miss Collins, you don't want to be involved in this mess. I'm a doctor, Sheriff. Let me through." The crowd parted reluctantly. On the wooden boardwalk lay a small boy, no older than 10. His skin was copper-toned, his black hair long and straight. Blood seeped from a wound in his side, his breathing shallow. Martha immediately recognized him as one of the Comanche children who occasionally came to the edge of town with the women to trade. "What happened here?" Martha asked, kneeling beside the boy despite the disapproving murmurs around her. "Indian boy tried to steal from Miller's store," someone called out. "Miller caught him, but the little savage pulled a knife. They scuffled, and the boy got stabbed with his own blade." Martha examined the wound. "This child is dying. I need to get him to my clinic." "Now see here, Miss Collins." Elias Miller stepped forward, his face flushed with indignation. "That boy is a thief and attacked me with a knife. We don't need to be wasting time on Indian problems." Martha looked up, her green eyes flashing with anger. "This is a child, Mr. Miller. I took an oath to help the sick and injured regardless of who they are." Sheriff Dawson sighed. "Miss Collins, you're new here. You don't understand. These Comanche have been raiding settlements for years. That boy's people have killed good men, women, and children. And that justifies letting a child die in the street?" Martha challenged. The crowd fell silent, exchanging uncomfortable glances. Martha turned to Timothy. "Help me carry him to the clinic." "Miss Collins," Sheriff Dawson's voice hardened, "if you help that boy, you're inviting trouble. His people might come looking for him, and the townsfolk won't take kindly to it either." Martha met his gaze without flinching. "Then so be it, Sheriff." With Timothy's reluctant help, Martha carried the unconscious boy to her clinic, aware of the disapproving stares that followed them. Once inside, she worked quickly, cleaning and stitching the wound. The boy had lost a lot of blood, but the knife had miraculously missed vital organs. As darkness fell, Martha sat beside the child's cot, gently sponging his forehead. His fever was high, but he was fighting. Outside, she could hear the townsfolk gathering, their voices a low, angry rumble. A knock at the door startled her. Sheriff Dawson entered, removing his hat. "They're saying you're choosing Indians over your own kind, Miss Collins." Martha continued tending to the boy. "I'm choosing humanity, Sheriff, nothing more." "You should know," Dawson said, lowering his voice. "This boy isn't just any Comanche child. Word is, he's the son of Black Horse, one of the fiercest Comanche warriors these parts have ever known. Man's killed dozens of settlers." Martha's hands trembled slightly, but she kept her composure. "That doesn't change my duty. Black Horse doesn't distinguish between innocent and guilty when he raids," Dawson warned. "If he thinks this town hurt his boy, then we must ensure his boy survives to tell him the truth," Martha replied firmly. After Dawson left, Martha moved to the window, gazing at the stars appearing in the darkening sky. The vastness of the Texas frontier stretched before her, so different from the crowded streets of Boston. She thought of her late husband, a doctor who had taught her everything she knew before consumption claimed him. What would James think of her decision? The boy stirred, mumbling words in his native tongue. Martha returned to his side, offering water. His dark eyes opened briefly, filled with fear and confusion. "It's all right," she soothed, unsure if he understood English. "You're safe here." As the night deepened, Martha contemplated the complexities of her new life on the frontier. She had come west seeking purpose after James's death, hoping to bring healing to those who needed it most. Never had she imagined being caught between two worlds, with a dying Comanche child under her care and an angry town outside her door. In the distance, beyond the town's boundaries, the silhouette of a lone rider appeared briefly on a ridge, observing the town below before disappearing into the night. 3 days passed, and the Comanche boy's condition improved steadily under Martha's diligent care. She had learned his name was Little Hawk, though communication remained difficult. He spoke little English, and she knew no Comanche, but they managed with gestures and the few words they shared. Martha's clinic had become increasingly isolated. Patients canceled appointments, and supplies she ordered from the general store were delivered by Timothy rather than brought in person. The boy's presence had turned many in Redemption Creek against her. On the morning of the 4th day, Martha was changing Little Hawk's bandages when the clinic door opened. A tall man with broad shoulders and a weathered face entered, Jacob Foster, the blacksmith whose shop stood at the edge of town. Unlike many in Redemption Creek, Jacob had traveled extensively and was known to trade fairly with the Indian tribes. "Miss Collins," he nodded respectfully, placing a package on her desk. "Thought you might need these herbs. My late wife was Cheyenne. She taught me which plants help with healing." Martha smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Foster. It's been difficult to acquire supplies lately." Jacob glanced at Little Hawk. "The boy's looking better. You've done good work." "He's strong," Martha replied, "but I worry about what happens when he's well enough to leave. The folks around here have long memories," Jacob said, his blue eyes thoughtful. "Too many have lost family to Comanche raids, and Black Horse's band has been particularly brutal." Martha's hand stilled. "Sheriff Dawson mentioned that Little Hawk might be Black Horse's son. Is it true?" Jacob nodded slowly. "The markings on his clothing suggest his father's a war chief. If it is Black Horse, and he discovers his son was hurt in town, I can't just turn him out," Martha said firmly. "No one's suggesting that," Jacob assured her, "but you need to understand the danger. Black Horse is feared even among other Comanche. They say he can track a man for 100 miles and never lose the trail." Little Hawk watched them with dark, intelligent eyes. Though he couldn't understand their words, he seemed to sense they were discussing his father. "Father," he said suddenly in broken English, pointing to himself, then making a sweeping gesture toward the distant hills. "Father, come." Martha and Jacob exchanged concerned glances. "We need to prepare," Jacob said. "If Black Horse comes looking for his son and finds him injured, I'll explain what happened," Martha insisted. "Surely he'll understand his son was cared for." Jacob's expression remained grave. "Comanche justice doesn't work like ours, Miss Collins, and there's too much blood between our peoples for easy understanding." After Jacob left, Martha sat beside Little Hawk, attempting to communicate through drawings and gestures. The boy was bright, quickly picking up English words she taught him. By afternoon, he was able to explain, haltingly, that he had come to town hoping to trade a small carved figure for candy, not to steal as Miller had claimed. Martha's heart ached at the misunderstanding that had nearly cost the child his life. She showed Little Hawk the carved wooden horse she'd found among his belongings, and his face brightened. "For trade," he explained. "No steal." That evening, Sheriff Dawson arrived with troubling news. "Comanche tracks have been spotted circling the town. Scouts, most likely." Martha felt a chill run down her spine. "What do we do?" "Miller and some of the men want to form a militia. Prepare for an attack," Dawson said grimly. "I've convinced them to hold off for now." "The boy is nearly healed," Martha said. "Perhaps if we return him safely, it might be too late for that." Dawson replied. Word is 2 Comanche riders were seen watching the town from the North Ridge. If they're Black Horse's men, they already know his son is here. After the sheriff departed, Martha found herself unable to sleep. She sat by the window, watching the silent street below, illuminated by pale moonlight. The distant howl of a coyote broke the stillness, reminding her how wild this land remained beneath its veneer of civilization. Little Hawk slept peacefully, unaware of the tension his presence had created. Martha wondered about his mother, whether she was alive, if she was worried sick about her son. The thought formed a lump in her throat as she remembered her own mother's grief when Martha's younger brother died of scarlet fever. A soft knock at the back door startled her from her reverie. Hand trembling, Martha took a small pistol James had insisted she carry and approached cautiously. "Who's there?" she called. "It's Jacob Foster," came the low reply. "Open up, quick." She unbolted the door to find Jacob looking over his shoulder nervously. "I need to speak with you privately." Once inside, Jacob removed his hat, revealing a worried expression. "I've come from meeting with a Comanche brave I've traded with before. He confirmed the boy is indeed Black Horse's son." Martha's breath caught. What else did he say? Black Horse knows his son is in town and injured. The brave wouldn't say more, but Jacob hesitated. "There's movement in their camp. They're preparing for something. We need to let them know Little Hawk is recovering, that he's being cared for," Martha insisted. Jacob's expression was grim. "I tried to convey that, but there's little trust. Black Horse believes his son was deliberately harmed." "Then I'll take Little Hawk to them myself," Martha declared. "That would be suicide," Jacob said firmly. "They'd kill you before you could explain." "Then what do you suggest?" Martha demanded, frustration evident in her voice. Jacob sighed heavily. "I've arranged to meet my Comanche contact again tomorrow. I'll try to negotiate a neutral exchange point." He glanced at Little Hawk. "The boy is well enough to travel?" Martha nodded reluctantly. "His wound is healing well. He can walk short distances." "Good. I'll return tomorrow with more information." Jacob moved to leave, then turned back. "Martha, be careful. The town is divided. Some folks are scared, others angry. Keep your doors locked." After Jacob left, Martha returned to her vigil by the window. The town seemed unnaturally quiet, as if holding its breath in anticipation. Far beyond the buildings, in the vast darkness of the plains, she imagined Black Horse and his warriors preparing to retrieve his son, peacefully or otherwise. Little Hawk stirred in his sleep, murmuring words in his native tongue. Martha gently adjusted his blanket, wondering what twist of fate had brought this child into her care, and what consequences would follow. The frontier had tested her in ways she never imagined when she left Boston, but for the first time since James's death, she felt truly alive. Her actions mattered, perhaps even the difference between life and death, peace and war. As dawn approached, Martha finally dozed in her chair, dreaming of 2 worlds colliding, and a bridge she was somehow meant to build between them. Morning brought a tense stillness to Redemption Creek. Martha helped Little Hawk eat a simple breakfast, encouraged by how steadily he could now sit up and hold his spoon. His wound was healing well, though he would need to avoid strenuous activity for several more weeks. A commotion outside drew Martha to the window. A group of men led by Elias Miller had gathered in the street, several carrying rifles. Sheriff Dawson stood facing them, hands raised in a calming gesture. "This doesn't look good," Martha murmured, instructing Little Hawk to stay in bed before stepping outside. The argument halted as she approached. Sheriff Dawson looked relieved to see her while Miller's expression hardened with hostility. "Miss Collins," the sheriff acknowledged. "Mr. Miller here believes we should send a message to the Comanche. A show of strength." "You mean violence," Martha corrected, staring directly at Miller. "What exactly are you proposing?" Miller's face flushed. "That Indian boy attacked me with a knife. His people are probably planning to raid us right now because you're harboring him. We need to make it clear we won't be intimidated." "By threatening a child?" Martha asked incredulously. "Little Hawk didn't attack you, Mr. Miller. He came to trade, not steal. He was carrying a carved horse to exchange for candy." Miller scoffed. "And you believe the word of a savage over one of your own?" "I believe the evidence," Martha replied firmly. The wooden carving was found among his things, and regardless, he's a child who was injured and needed care. A child who'll grow up to be a killer like his father, one of Miller's companions muttered. Sheriff Dawson stepped between them. That's enough. No one's taking the law into their own hands while I'm sheriff. Miss Collins, how soon will the boy be well enough to leave town? He can travel now if carefully, Martha admitted. Mr. Foster is attempting to arrange a peaceful handover. Foster, Miller spat. Man's half-Indian lover himself can't trust his judgment. The sound of approaching hoofbeats interrupted the confrontation. Jacob Foster rode up, his expression grave. He dismounted quickly, nodding to Martha. Sheriff, we have a situation, he said. I've just come from meeting my Comanche contact. Black Horse has given us until sundown to return his son. If we don't, he's threatened to attack the town. Murmurs of alarm spread through the gathered crowd. Miller's face twisted with vindication. See? They're savages. We should gather every able-bodied man and prepare to defend ourselves. Or, Jacob countered, we could return the boy as requested and avoid bloodshed altogether. I've arranged a neutral meeting point, Jacob continued, addressing the sheriff. 5 miles west at Broken Creek. They've agreed I can bring the boy, along with one other person. He looked at Martha. They specifically requested the woman healer who saved the boy's life. Martha felt a flutter of fear, but nodded resolutely. I'll go. Absolutely not, Sheriff Dawson protested. It could be a trap. If they wanted to harm us, they wouldn't bother with arrangements, Jacob reasoned. Black Horse wants his son back safely, that's all. After further heated discussion, it was reluctantly agreed that Martha and Jacob would take Little Hawk to the meeting point at sunset. As the crowd dispersed, Martha returned to the clinic to find Little Hawk watching anxiously from the window. Father come? He asked in his limited English. Martha nodded, sitting beside him. Yes, we're taking you to meet him today. The boy's face brightened, then fell as he touched his wounded side. Father angry. Think white people hurt Little Hawk. I'll explain what happened, Martha assured him, though uncertainty gnawed at her. How could she communicate across such a vast divide of language and mistrust? Jacob arrived midday with a small wagon. We should prepare to leave soon. It's a slow journey with the wagon. As Martha gathered medical supplies and helped Little Hawk dress, Jacob explained the plan. We'll meet Black Horse and 5 of his warriors. No more. The sheriff will follow at a distance with 2 deputies just in case. Do you really think there could be trouble? Martha asked quietly, ensuring Little Hawk couldn't hear. Jacob's weathered face was solemn. Black Horse has lost family to white settlers before. His first wife and daughter were killed in a raid 3 years ago. He doesn't trust easily. Martha's heart sank. Then why would he trust us now? Because his son lives thanks to you, Jacob replied. That counts for something, even to a man like Black Horse. They left town under the watchful eyes of the residents, some offering prayers for their safe return, others watching with resentment. Little Hawk sat beside Martha in the wagon, occasionally pointing out plants or animals, and naming them in both Comanche and the English words Martha had taught him. The journey took them through rolling hills dotted with mesquite and scrub oak, the landscape beautiful, despite the tension of their mission. Martha found herself wondering what this land had looked like before towns like Redemption Creek appeared, when the Comanche moved freely across the plains. Jacob, she ventured, how did you come to know the Comanche so well? He kept his eyes on the trail ahead. I married a Cheyenne woman 20 years ago. Lived with her people for 5 years before we settled near here. A shadow passed over his features. After she died, I kept the connections, learned their ways, their language, found it's possible to live peacefully if there's respect on both sides. As they neared Broken Creek, the sun hung low in the western sky, painting the landscape gold and crimson. Jacob pointed to a copse of trees beside a shallow creek. That's the meeting place. Remember, let me do the talking at first. Black Horse speaks some English, but pride might prevent him from using it. Martha nodded, her throat suddenly dry. As they approached, she could make out mounted figures waiting in the shadow of the trees. Her heart pounded against her ribs, but she kept her expression calm for Little Hawk's benefit. The wagon stopped 30 yards from the waiting warriors. Jacob helped Martha and Little Hawk down, then walked slowly forward, hands visible. "I bring the son of Black Horse," he called out in Comanche, the unfamiliar words carefully pronounced, "and the healer who saved his life." One rider moved forward, separating from the others. He was tall, with a commanding presence that needed no introduction. Black Horse wore a mixture of traditional Comanche clothing and items clearly taken from settlers: a cavalry officer's jacket adorned with beadwork, a wide-brimmed hat with eagle feathers. His face was lined with experience, his eyes sharp and evaluating. Little Hawk started forward eagerly, but Martha held him back gently. "Wait," she whispered. "Let Jacob speak first." Black Horse dismounted, walking slowly toward them. His gaze fixed on his son, then moved to Martha, studying her with an intensity that made her breath catch. After what seemed an eternity, he spoke, his voice deep and measured. "My son lives because of you," he said in accented but clear English. "Why would a white woman help a Comanche child when your people hate mine?" Martha met his gaze steadily. "I'm a healer. I help anyone who needs it. Your son is a child, no different from any other in his need for care." Black Horse's expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or grudging respect. He knelt before Little Hawk, examining him carefully, speaking soft words in their language. The boy responded animatedly, pointing to his side, then to Martha. When Black Horse rose again, his demeanor had subtly shifted. "My son says you treated him with kindness, that you protected him from those who wished him harm." He glanced at Jacob. "Is this true?" Jacob nodded. The town was divided. Some wanted to turn the boy out, but Miss Collins refused. She stood against her own people for your son. Black Horse considered this, then addressed Martha directly. "Why?" It was a simple question that demanded an honest answer. Martha thought carefully before responding, aware that lives might depend on her words. "Because healing isn't just about mending wounds," she said finally. "It's about seeing the person beneath the pain. Your son needed help, and I could provide it. Everything else, the conflicts between our peoples, the history, that didn't matter in that moment." As the sun touched the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Black Horse made a decision that would change everything. "You speak with an honest heart," Black Horse said finally. "Few white people have shown such respect to the Comanche." He turned to Jacob, speaking rapidly in Comanche. Jacob listened intently, occasionally responding in the same language. "What are they saying?" Martha whispered to Little Hawk, who had remained close to her side. "Father asks about town," the boy replied softly. "About you, about what happened." After several minutes of conversation, Jacob turned to Martha. "Black Horse proposes something unusual. He's invited us to come to their camp as honored guests. He says his son should rest more before traveling far, and he wishes to repay the debt he owes you for saving Little Hawk's life." Martha's surprise must have shown on her face. Jacob continued, "It's a significant gesture of trust. I've advised accepting. Refusing might be seen as an insult." Martha glanced at the setting sun, then at Sheriff Dawson and his deputies waiting in the distance. "The sheriff will think we've been taken captive." "I'll ride back and explain," Jacob suggested. "Then return to guide you to their camp. It's not far." After Jacob departed, Martha found herself alone with Black Horse, Little Hawk, and the Comanche warriors. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Little Hawk began chattering to his father, pointing to Martha, and mimicking her tending to his wound. Black Horse listened to his son, then approached Martha. Up close, she could see the lines etched into his face by sun and hardship, and the intelligence in his dark eyes. "My son says you sang to him when the pain was bad," he said, surprising her with his direct English. "Songs from your people?" Martha nodded. "Lullabies my mother sang to me. They comfort children of any nation, I think." A ghost of a smile touched Black Horse's lips. "My wife sang to him also. She is gone now." "I'm sorry," Martha said sincerely. "I lost my husband last year. Something passed between them then. A recognition of shared grief that transcended their cultural differences." Black Horse nodded slightly, as if acknowledging this connection. When Jacob returned, they traveled to the Comanche camp as night fell. Martha's first glimpse of the encampment took her breath away. Dozens of teepees arranged in a great circle, their silhouettes outlined against the star-filled sky. Women tended cooking fires, children played despite the late hour, and horses grazed under watchful eyes. Their arrival caused a stir. Women rushed to greet Little Hawk, examining him with concern, while warriors gathered to hear Black Horse's account. Martha felt conspicuous in her Eastern-style clothing, aware of curious stares and whispered comments she couldn't understand. An elderly woman approached, her face deeply lined, but her movements still graceful. She took Martha's hands in her own weathered ones, speaking words Martha couldn't comprehend. "Black Horse's mother," Jacob explained quietly. "She's thanking you for saving her grandson." Martha was led to a large teepee and invited inside. The interior was warm and surprisingly comfortable, with buffalo robes spread on the ground, and a small fire in the center. Food was brought, a rich stew of meat and wild roots, flat bread and dried berries. As they ate, Jacob translated the conversation between Martha and Black Horse's family. Martha learned that Little Hawk's mother had died in childbirth, that Black Horse had been widowed twice, once to disease and once to settlers' violence. Despite these tragedies, there was no bitterness in the way he spoke of his life, only a stoic acceptance that both impressed and saddened Martha. After the meal, Martha checked Little Hawk's wound, pleased to find no signs of infection. The Comanche medicine woman watched with interest, occasionally asking questions through Jacob about Martha's healing techniques. Later, sitting by the central fire of the camp, Martha found herself in a strange position, a white woman among the very people she had been warned to fear since arriving in the West. Yet she felt no threat, only a growing appreciation for a way of life so different from her own. "Your people think all Comanche are killers," Black Horse said, settling beside her, "and my people think all whites wish us gone from this land." "Both views are too simple," Martha replied. "People are just people wherever they come from." Black Horse studied the fire. "Perhaps, but this land has seen much blood, hard to wash away such stains. Yet here we sit, sharing a fire," Martha observed. "Perhaps that's a beginning." Dawn found Martha still in the Comanche camp, having slept in the teepee of Black Horse's mother. As she emerged into the cool morning air, she saw Black Horse teaching Little Hawk to shoot a small bow, the boy's movements careful to protect his healing wound. Jacob approached with a steaming cup. "Coffee," he explained, handing it to her. "Black Horse traded for it, thought you might miss it." Martha accepted gratefully, watching the camp come to life around her. "When do we return to town?" "Soon," Jacob replied. "Black Horse has decided to accompany us with 2 warriors. He wants to speak with the town leaders." Martha nearly choked on her coffee. "Is that wise? The townsfolk are afraid of him." "Fear comes from not knowing," Jacob said. "Black Horse understands this better than most. He believes meeting with the town might prevent future misunderstandings." Their return to Redemption Creek caused an uproar. People rushed indoors at the sight of Comanche warriors riding openly down the main street, and Sheriff Dawson hurried to meet them, hand nervously near his pistol. "It's all right, Sheriff," Martha called out. "Black Horse comes in peace. He wishes to speak with you and the town council." The meeting that followed in the town hall was tense at first. Elias Miller and his supporters watched suspiciously as Black Horse, dignified in his warrior's attire, addressed them through Jacob's translation. "My son came to your town to trade, not to steal," Black Horse began. "He was wounded through misunderstanding but saved by this woman's courage." He gestured to Martha. "I could have brought warriors to avenge him. Instead, I come to speak of peace." Sheriff Dawson leaned forward. "What kind of peace?" "My people have hunted these lands for generations," Black Horse replied. "Your town blocks our path to traditional hunting grounds. This causes hunger, which leads to raids. If you allow us safe passage twice each year for the buffalo hunt, we will not disturb your settlement." Debate erupted among the council members. Some opposed any agreement, while others saw the practical benefits of peace. Throughout the discussion, Martha noticed how Black Horse remained calm, dignified, even when Miller made disparaging remarks about Indian promises. Finally, Sheriff Dawson raised his hand for silence. "I believe we can agree to safe passage for hunting parties provided there's advance notice and no weapons brought into town limits." Black Horse nodded. "This is acceptable." As the meeting concluded, Martha found herself standing beside Black Horse on the town hall steps. The street had filled with curious townsfolk watching from a distance. "You've done something remarkable today," she told him. "Many thought peace impossible." "Peace is never impossible," Black Horse replied. "Only difficult." He glanced at her with those perceptive eyes. "You will continue your healing work here?" "Yes," Martha said, "though I expect some patients might still avoid the Indian lover doctor." A rare smile crossed Black Horse's face. "Their loss." He hesitated, then added, "The Comanche also need healing sometimes. You would be welcome in our camp." Something unspoken passed between them, a connection forged through Little Hawk's care that had somehow grown into something more profound. Martha felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. "I would be honored to visit," she said softly. In the months that followed, Martha became a bridge between two worlds. Twice she rode to the Comanche camp with Jacob to tend to illnesses and injuries. Each visit deepened her understanding of their customs and her friendship with Black Horse. She learned words of their language, and he improved his English through their conversations about everything from healing plants to the stars overhead. By the time autumn painted the plains in gold and russet, Redemption Creek had reluctantly adjusted to the unusual arrangement. The promised hunting parties passed peacefully through town, and a cautious trading relationship began to develop. On a crisp October evening, Martha sat on her clinic porch, watching the sunset paint the western sky. Hoofbeats announced a visitor, and she looked up to see Black Horse approaching alone, Little Hawk riding behind him. The boy, now fully recovered, jumped down and ran to hug Martha. "Brought you something," he announced proudly, presenting her with a beautifully beaded medicine bag. "My grandmother made it," he explained in his much-improved English, "for the healing woman." Black Horse dismounted more slowly, watching the interaction with evident pleasure. He insisted on bringing it himself. Martha invited them inside for tea, a drink Black Horse had developed a taste for during his visits. As Little Hawk explored the clinic with childish curiosity, Black Horse and Martha sat at her small table. "You cross between worlds easily now," Black Horse observed, watching her handle the delicate china cups with the same confidence she showed preparing medicinal herbs. "As do you," Martha replied. "Little Hawk tells me you're teaching your warriors that not all white settlers are enemies. Some are worth knowing," he said, his gaze meeting hers with unmistakable meaning. "Some change how you see the world." Martha felt her cheeks warm. "The boy has healed well, you must be proud." "I am, and grateful." His hand moved across the table, tentatively covering hers. "The Comanche believe life gives us many paths. The wise person recognizes when paths that seemed separate begin to join." Martha turned her hand beneath his, their fingers intertwining. Outside, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky over a frontier where two worlds had begun, against all odds, to find common ground. "I think," she said softly, "that our paths joined the moment a brave little boy needed help, and his father was wise enough to see beyond the past to a possible future." Black Horse's smile held both tenderness and promise. "A future worth building, between your people and mine." "Between you and me," Martha corrected gently. As Little Hawk returned to show them a book of anatomical drawings he'd discovered, Martha and Black Horse exchanged a look of understanding. The journey ahead would not be easy. Two cultures with a history of bloodshed did not find peace overnight. But in this quiet moment, with their hands still joined beneath the table, the future seemed full of possibility. And for Martha Collins, the Boston widow who had come west seeking purpose, and Black Horse, the Comanche warrior who had found respect for an enemy he never expected to understand, a new chapter was just beginning.